Welcome back to So You Really Want to Learn Latin, and today we are going to look at three slightly irregular little nouns which are quite common, so it's good to understand how they behave. And these three nouns are filius, which means a son, Deus, which means a god, and vir, which means a man. Okay, so we'll start with filius. Now, it ends in us, and it is a second declension noun. So to all intents and purposes, it's sort of like annus. But it isn't quite, because it's got some slightly odd forms. So if we have a little look at it in full, filius, now the vocative, filii, you'd kind of expect filie, you know, like anus, ene, anum, filius, filie, but it doesn't do that. It goes filii. And all second declension nouns that begin life as ius, like gladius, a sword, they sort of behave like this in the vocative. They don't go gladie. It's a horrid thing to try and say. So they just go e. Filius, filii. Gladius, gladii. Okay? Accusative, very straightforward, filium. Now the genitive, if you think about what you're going to get there, you're going to get two I's together, filii. And a lot of nouns do that. Gladius, for example, a sword, you do see the genitive gladii. Filius, very often, however, gets contracted to just filii. So you've gone filius, filii, filium, filii, and then filio, filio, no problems. And the plural is completely regular. Filii, filii, filios, filiorum, filiis, filiis. Okay, next one to look at is Deus, a god. Now, Deus isn't very strange in the singular. The only strange thing is its vocative is Deus. It doesn't try to go de. I mean, goodness, I don't know how you'd even say that word. So, Deus, Deus, Deum. Dei, Deo, Deo. That's the singular. The plural, however, is di, Deus. You do sometimes see Dei, but much more common is di, Deus. And then the genitive plural, deum, deis, or deum, dis. And dis is more common than deis. Okay, I've put it up here with forms that are slightly peculiar in bold, so you can see that they look a bit strange. And it's a bit unfortunate that you're allowed these alternative forms. So in the plural, you're either going deus, deum, deis, or di, or dei, deus, deorum, deis, or dis, you know, you've just got to learn to recognize either form. And then finally, vir, which means a man, very hard word to say that. If, like me, you can't roll your R's very well. It's a short I and a rolled R. Vir. I'm not very good at that. If you can do it, good luck. Now this is fine. The vocative is just vir. They don't try, and I don't even know what they would try to do, but they don't try anything. They just leave it the same as the nominative. So vir, virum, viri, viro, viro, viri, viros, and then you either get virorum or just virum, and then viris. Okay, now one just funny little thing to add to that is with filius, which means a son, we've already met the kind of feminine version of that, which is filia, which means a daughter. Now, filia goes like mensa, perfectly normal. Filia, filiam, filii, filiar. Filii, filias, filiarum. Now, If you think about what would happen in the dative and ablative plural of that noun, it should go filiis, filiis. The trouble is that if it did do that, you wouldn't be able to distinguish it from the dative or ablative plural of filius, which in the plural is going filii, filii, filios, filiorum, or filium, filiis, filiis. So if you want to know the difference between filiis coming from filius and filiis coming from filia, well, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And so as a result, the dative and ablative plural of filia, the feminine first declension noun, is in fact filiabus. Very, very peculiar form, at least peculiar for people who haven't yet learnt the third declension, which we will be learning before too long now. But just know this, the dative and ablative plural of the feminine first declension noun filia goes filiabus. Okay, so you get filii, filii, filias, filiarum, filiabus, filiabus. And the same applies when we look at Deus, which means a god, and we know that dea means a goddess. We've already used dea, meaning a goddess, goes like mensa. Well, it goes like mensa most of the way until it gets to the dative and ablative plural, and it too, to avoid confusing it with the masculine form, changes its form and goes deabus, deabus, in the dative and ablative plural. So you get dea, dea, deam, dei, dei, dea, dei, dei, deas, dearum, deabus, deabus. Okay, so don't let anyone tell you Latin is not a tricky language to cope with, but once you've coped with it, you're motoring. Okay, so now really good time to check what you've learnt so far before we take our next step, and our next step is the third declension. Okay, so just a little good time to sit back and check you know, off by heart, amo, moneo, rego, and audio in the first four tenses. Okay, present, future, imperfect, and perfect. Those are our four main conjugations. We've also recently learnt the mixed conjugation, capio. So make sure you can do capio in the first four tenses. As far as nouns are concerned, make sure you know your first declension nouns like mensa, your second declension nouns like annus and bellum. Those are the two main types, masculine, annus, neuter, bellum. And then you'll remember we've also learnt these nouns that end in er, like puer and magister. Magister type nouns drop their e, puer type nouns do not. Okay, so make sure you can do puer and magister. We've learnt adjectives that go like bonus, which are called first stroke second declension adjectives. Okay, they end in us in the masculine, a in the feminine, and in the neuter. And we've learnt to use those and make them agree with the nouns they describe. We've also learnt that there are adjective forms that end in er, like tener and pulcher. So make sure you can do those. Again, there are the forms that keep the e and the forms that lose the e. And then, most recently, we've learnt Roman numerals, and we want to be able to write a Roman number as big as you like, using the symbols, the 1 and the V and the X and the L and the C and the D and the M. Okay, make sure you know those symbols and how we use them. And then we've learnt to count to 20 using cardinal numbers. Unus, duo, tres, quator, quinque, sex, septem, octo, noem, decem, undecim, duodecim, tredecim, quattordecim, quindecim, sedecim, septendecim, duodevginti, undevginti, and weginti. And we've learnt the ordinal numbers, first to tenth, primus, secundus, tertius, quartus, quintus, sextus, septimus, octavus, nonus, decimus. Okay, so there's a lot we've learnt over these past few weeks, but before we move on to the third declension, have a really good check that you know that stuff. Any problems, drop me a comment in the comments box below, and I will see you next time for more Latin here on this channel.